Hi, I'm Katelyn from Marathon Handbook, and today I'm going to give you my 8 top tips for race day that you can use for your next marathon. Tip number 1, eat a pre-race breakfast. Fueling up before your race is essential for success. Now, you should have been practicing your pre-race breakfast throughout all of your training on your long runs. With those weeks and weeks of trial and error, you probably have your race strategy for pre-race fueling pretty clear. However, if you're traveling for your marathon, putting together your pre-race breakfast can be a little more complicated than when you've been doing it for home before your long run. When you arrive at your destination, make sure to visit a supermarket a few days before so you can check out what you have available to you and put together the pre-race breakfast that will be perfect before your marathon. If you haven't quite figured out your perfect pre-race breakfast as of yet, a carbohydrate-rich pre-race snack will be the best way to go to ensure top performance. Some examples that you can try out during your long runs would be toast and honey, a bagel and jelly, or maybe a bowl of oatmeal. The most important thing is that during this trial and error phase before race day, you make sure that you eat something that sits well in your stomach and won't give you any trouble during your run. Tip number 2, dress according to the weather forecast. In the days leading up to your marathon, make sure that you're periodically checking the weather forecast to see what's coming your way. If the marathon is going to be cold, don't forget to bring appropriate clothing, sleeves, something to cover your ears, perhaps something to cover your neck, gloves, anything that's going to make you feel comfortable and not start to shiver during your run. If the marathon is just going to start out cold but will warm up considerably throughout the race, you want to make sure that while you're waiting in your corral at the start line, you have layers that you can put on to make sure that you stay nice and warm before you start moving. Take along some old blankets or sweats, something that you won't mind leaving behind at the start of the race. If it's raining, a poncho or a trash bag can also be really helpful to keep you dry and warm before you start the race. In most of the larger marathons, whatever you leave behind at the start line gets reused. It gets collected when all of the runners leave and it gets donated to people in need. Also, if you need to start out the race with sleeves or something to cover your ears, but you're not going to want it down the line, make sure it's something that you won't mind leaving at an aid station. Also make sure that at the end of the race that you have packed some sort of a bag to leave. So when you get there, if you become cold, you have layers to put on over you. Tip number 3, have a race day logistics plan. Leading up to the marathon, make sure that you review the website to ensure where you need to park, if there are shuttles available, how to get to and from the start line, where your spectators can come and see you, where they can pick you up at the finish line. All of this information is really important so you have a stress-free arrival. No matter what the start time is, plan to arrive with plenty of time beforehand. You want to be able to have time to find your corral, to warm up, and to do any other logistical things you need to before the start of the race without feeling stressed. Also, make sure to have your end of the race plan figured out. Have a meeting place if someone's going to pick you up because you don't want to be aimlessly wandering around after your 26.2 miles. Tip number 4, don't use anything new on race day. This is the golden rule for any race, especially a marathon. You don't want to use new shoes, new clothes, or new nutrition, anything that you haven't practiced in all of your long runs. New shoes could leave you sidelined with blisters or hot spots. New clothes could chafe in places that you've never chafed before. And a different nutrition strategy could really give you some GI trouble. Every single thing that you use on race day needs to be well practiced throughout all of your long runs. So at least the elements that you can control during this marathon, you will control. Tip number 5, don't forget to warm up. The excitement of a race can be incredible, standing there with all of these people excited for the marathon, and it can make us forget to warm up. Remember that warming up before a run helps us get our blood flowing, our muscles warmed up, our joints warmed up, and even gets our head in the game for our race. Even if you don't have a lot of space to do a light jog before your marathon, you have space in the corral to run in place. You can do some butt kicks, you can do some high knees, you can do some reverse lunges, anything that you can do in place to get your body moving and warmed up. If you fail to warm up before the marathon, what you'll probably end up doing is use the first couple of miles to warm up. But when you start your marathon, most of us have this exciting pace planned out, and we don't want to take those first couple of miles warming up. We want to take those first couple of miles at the pace we planned, feeling good and ready to go. Tip number 6, don't go out too fast. One of the biggest mistakes for new and experienced runners alike is starting out too fast at the marathon. But how can we blame ourselves? The excitement, the atmosphere, the thousands of runners surrounding us, it's really easy to get pulled along at a pace that's faster than what we planned. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and to go with a group that's maybe a little too fast for us. But my biggest piece of advice is to try to stick to your pace. When we get caught up in the moment and we start out too fast, sure, we're gonna feel amazing. It's the beginning of the race. We've been planning to do this for 26 miles, so we're gonna feel great at the beginning. But unfortunately, if we go too fast at the beginning, we'll start getting further and further into the race, and we run the risk of hitting the famous wall. It's much easier said than done, but try to start out at your planned marathon pace or the perceived effort that you're planning to run, even a little slower at the beginning, and you can speed up as you go along. And by all means, if you have a lot of gas in the tank for the last few miles, give it your all. Tip number 7, stick to your fueling plan. Probably the second most common mistake next to starting out too fast is abandoning your fueling and hydration plan during a marathon. Whether it's because you get caught up in the moment, lose track of time, or begin to have tummy trouble, getting those gels or whatever you're going to take for your nutrition and fluids in can become a problem. An idea that you can use to make sure that you're drinking and eating when you need to is to set alarms on your running watch. And if it's tummy trouble and you're not feeling well, I know it's hard, but try to get some of that nutrition in because you don't want to bonk later on. Tip number 8, enjoy your race. And most importantly, have fun. You've trained so hard over these last months or even years to get to this marathon. Enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy everyone around you, and just have a good time. There you have it, my top 8 tips for before your next marathon. I hope they've been helpful and enjoy your next race.